incredible, catching bats, actually hanging upside down from the ceiling to grab bats as they fly out. And as you can see here, Steve Backshall actually handled a Scolopendra centipede. As you can see, he's wearing a pair of thick gardening gloves, and that's mainly down to the fact that they are probably the only means to protect yourself when handling those centipedes. But even so, I'm not entirely sure I would want to handle a Scolopendra centipede. This is these are the caves they're found in Venezuela. Now, the next animal I'm going to show you is one of the most ancient creatures on the planet, and another animal that has been haunting the world's waterways since before the dinosaurs. It is the American crocodile. Now, American crocodiles are found throughout the rivers, lakes, and the estuaries and coastlines of South and Central America, known as Latin America, but also even around Mexico and the southern parts of the United States. A fully grown male American crocodile can be as long as a minibus and weigh as much as a small car. And their main diet is fish, but they will also eat insects, frogs, lizards, crustaceans, large mammals like deer, and every once in a while, big American crocodiles have been known to take people, so they are confirmed man-eaters. And of course, compared to other species of crocodile, they have a fairly narrow snout, and that's mainly down to the fact that their main diet is fish, so they have to be able to get through the water after their prey very, very quickly. These crocodiles can survive in both fresh water and the sea. In fact, they can cry out saltwater tears and have special glands inside their mouths to remove sea salt from their systems. So basically, sweet water or salt water, nowhere is safe from this animal. And just like the black caiman, they have sensors along their lips that can detect vibrations of struggling prey in the water. And like all members of the crocodilian family, they have a reflective layer of cells at the back of their eyes that give them bright ruby red eye shine. And of course, while the American crocodile has been known to occasionally be a man-eater, that is desperately rare, but even so, you always need to have that in the back of your mind when you're working with these animals, because they are potentially dangerous. And here is their range. In fact, right here in Cuba, there's actually fishermen who feed the crocodiles, which is actually quite impressive. Now, the next animal I'm going to show you is probably my favourite marine mammal and the ocean's top predators. They are the orca, or killer whales. Now, orca are commonly believed to be whales because of their size, but they are actually the largest species of dolphins. I mean, they're called killer whales because they hunt and kill whales for food. Because how they got the name killer whale was in the 1860s, a whaling captain witnessed them hunting and killing a whale and described them as spreading death, and the name killer whale was born. Of course, when I say they are the largest of the dolphins, in fact a fully grown male, because the males can get a lot bigger than the females, fully grown male could grow to be 12 metres long and weigh about 8 tonnes and has the largest dorsal fin And the dorsal fin of a male orca can grow to be as long as I am tall, nearly 2 meters high. And of course they also have teeth that are probably a lot longer than my thumb, but probably the most deadly aspect of all is their intelligence, because orca are found in many oceans of the world, and they all specialise in hunting different prey. That's called killer whale cultures. But here in Patagonia, off the south coast of the southern coast of South America, right at the southern tip, these killer whales have probably the most famous killer whale culture of all, because they come to the coastline of Patagonia, specifically to a place called the Peninsula Valdez, where they use the rising tides to catch sea lions in the surf zone. So what they do is they wait till the tide is very high, and there's usually young sea lions or even adult sea lions along the surf zone right at the edge of the waves. The orca will then use echolocation to pinpoint their prey, and then they charge in and they will grab a sea lion and either drag it back out to sea to drown it, or quite often a well-placed bite will either kill it or leave it to bleed to death. And this is always very risky, because if the orca get the timing wrong and they charge in, if the sea lions are too far away from the edge, they could risk beaching themselves on the sand. But even so, these animals have been doing it for decades, and they will always, and once they've got onto sand, almost completely onto the sand, and either grabbed their prey or haven't got prey, they will manage to manoeuvre themselves back into the sea. And if their prey is still alive, quite often they'll be teaching their young calves how to kill it. I mean, while that can be the dark side of nature, what we've got to understand is that the killer whales have got to feed themselves, and more importantly their calves. And only by doing this will the calves learn the skills they will need to become the ocean's top predators. Now, I would love to go to Patagonia one day to see this spectacle, because it is still something that very few people have ever got the chance to see. You know, I'd love to see this, but I mean, I've heard that people have actually spent weeks to months there and not seen anything. But even so, it would still be well worth a trip if I got to go there one day. Of course, here is the Peninsula Valdez, which is where the orca come to hunt sea lions. Now, the next predator I'm going to show you is the longest weasel family and the terminator of South American rivers. It is the Giant River Otter. Now, these animals are in the weasel family, which include some of the meanest animals on earth, like weasels, stoats, wolverines, and even honey badgers. These are all animals that are notorious and well known for punching above their weight, taking on animals many times their own size, and having no fear at all. And when I said that these are the longest of the weasel family, I mean, fully grown male could be as long as I am tall, at about probably just about 2 meters. But they also have ferocious teeth. In fact, of course, local people actually call these animals river wolves. I mean, about as long as I am tall and around about the same size and weight as a wolf, as well as having canine teeth that are about as long as my little finger, not that much dissimilar to a wolf, but also they hunt in packs, which is just like wolves. And of course, the giant river otters will take on anything. In fact, they eat crustaceans, amphibians like frogs and toads, but they will also take on giant catfish, piranhas, anacondas, and even incredibly, they have even been known to take on fully grown black caiman. In fact, they could kill a caiman by slicing it open with their teeth. And of course, by day, they are the top predators along jungle rivers of South America. And one way they are so good at hunting is when they dive down in the murky waters, they can use their sensitive whiskers to detect the wake of a fish that swims past, and then whoosh, they move in for the kill. Of course, while they may look very cute and cuddly, I would not advise trying to give one of these a cuddle, because you probably end up getting your face ripped off. Of course, giant otters are incredibly rare, and they are also threatened by people, like with habitat disrepair, like with pollution of the lakes and rivers where they live, dams being built to cut off much of their food supply, as well as competition with overfishing and even hunting for their fur. But giant otters are starting to make a dramatic recovery, and they have been seen in many parts of South America's rivers, being able to take on crocodiles and anacondas and pretty much anything that gets in their paths. These are basically the kings of the South American rivers. And here is their range. Now, the next predator I'm going to show you is the largest of all birds of prey. It is the Andean Condor. Condors are not purely predators. I mean, they're mostly scavengers, but that doesn't actually mean they're weak. But also, when you think about it, scavengers are just predators going about getting their meals the easy way. In fact, you can actually tell them apart, male from female, because the male usually has this distinctive crest on his head, and that right there is a female. And these birds are the largest of all birds of prey. In fact, they can have a wingspan of about 3 meters, and they can weigh probably as much as a harpy eagle, and about just over 9 kilograms. And they have a formidably powerful beak that's as tough as a pair of bolt cutters, and that can tear through tough hide, the toughest hide of carcasses. And of course, in the Andes, when an animal dies, usually the first vultures to turn up are turkey vultures. And turkey vultures are actually very interesting birds because they have a phenomenal sense of smell, which is very unusual for birds. But when the first birds to arrive at a carcass, like black vultures and turkey vultures, because they don't have the strength in their beak to get through the tough hide and to open it up, so they have to wait for the arrival of the bigger birds, king vultures and Andean condors. And king vultures are a little bit smaller than a condor, but even so, they are incredibly beautiful birds with almost comical, clown-like faces. And like the condor, they have a tough beak that can open up the toughest of carcasses. Now, unfortunately, the Andean condor is becoming endangered critically in the wild, and there's probably less than 5,000 of them left in the wild, and There are many reasons for that. I mean, the first is climate change.